I was there the day of the event. I pull up because I was there to help volunteer. I pulled up and I see the kids outside. The first thing I said to Miguel when I talked to him, I said, "Where are the police?" He was like, "I don't know." So to me, that told me he, in his mind, thought that there were going to be police officers there at 9 o'clock or before then to help with the crowd. Of course, he didn't know it was going to be that many kids out there. Nobody knew that. But even so, you could have still had a patrol car there to deter the kids, or the police officers that were supposed to be there, or that he thought was supposed to be there, that never showed up. But nonetheless, as the day goes on, he's there at the window, servicing these children as they come in orderly. There was no problem with the kids coming in at all. Once they were inside the skating rink, skating, there was no problems there either. As a matter of fact, as I was preparing hot dogs for the kids, I thought to myself, wow, these kids are really doing it right. They're skating, they're laughing, they're dancing, having a good time on those skates. The next thing I know, I see kids running to the back. I'm like, what's going on? I come out the booth, I come out and I can't breathe. I'm like, what is happening? Now, I've never been in any area of tear gas or whatever that is that you used that day, or the police officers used that day. But it was overwhelming. What did you guys expect for the kids to do? They're gonna run. There's gonna be chaos, and it was. And I'm thinking to myself, these kids were in here doing what they were supposed to do, enjoying themselves, and this is what they get? Further on, I said, Miguel, what would you like me to do with these hot dogs? He was like, pass them out to these kids. I pass out the hot dogs to the kids. I just so happen to go outside, passing out hot dogs. And what do I see? I am 53 years old, and I have never in my life witnessed something like this. As I'm standing there with hot dogs in my hand, I see a police officer with what he had, or it looked like a rifle, running across the street, aiming at a child. That's what I witnessed. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I'm sure as heck you wouldn't appreciate seeing something like that. I have never, I've seen it on TV. I've seen it where it was fictional, not facts. This was a fact. I witnessed this myself, and I'm still upset to this day. And as I look and see officers, I'm like, I don't want to judge every officer over what that officer did. It's not fair, is it? I don't want you to judge a child or all the children that you're judging over a fight over two kids. Is it fair to judge these young African-American students that were coming out to enjoy themselves that night? Is it fair for each of you or any of you, any of us, to judge all of our children? They have enough judgment against them. We should come together as a community. The next day, he gets an email from the law director. Who is the law director, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, she didn't come. How about that? He gets an email from her stating to shut it down, to shut down something that's been in that neighborhood for many years, and probably some of you may have gone there and skated. If you're not a skater, you may not understand. We have a loving community, and it's something we love to do. It brings us together. It's like a kid's playground for adults. We love it. It's freedom. It's enjoyable. And you guys should think about what you're doing to these kids if you were to shut it down. And not only the kids, the adults. It's a place where we go. How about that? People who are educated, have jobs, look like me, look like you. They come out there every week. We look forward to that. So it's not just the kids you're affecting, it's adults as well. Yes, I have passion for it. I surely do. And guess what? I don't have any children, but all of them are mine, and they were certainly mine that night as I see them being tortured with this tear gas. You wouldn't like it. I know you wouldn't like it. So why would you accept that? The police officers came in with the wrong attitude. Ma'am,
your time is up.
With the wrong attitude. I hope that you guys consider and think about that and keep that skating rink open, as it is something that is important in the community. Thank you.
Well, hello and welcome to a live stream recording of BZ Listening. I am your host, BZ Douglas. This is a bit of a take two, but that's fine. God knows I always do a lot of takes when I'm recording these podcast intros anyways. So if I got to do it again, I got to do it again. I wanted to record an episode essentially going through my latest article, which is following along. It's part of the work that's being done with State of Injustice as it focuses on the city of Euclid. And so what I'm going to be doing today is reading from the article, playing some of the media that is embedded in it. What we saw, the first video clip I played there was from the first big city council meeting where following the riot that we'll get into at the Pla-Mor skating rink, which is what my article focuses on. And that was Dorothy Curtis, who also testified in the hearing that this article focuses on. So without further ado, I'm going to get into reading through the article. If you are watching live, feel free to throw a comment or question on there. I'm happy to bring it up and address it. And if you are trolling and going to just reflexively ignore the abuse that the police and the police are doing and the city is condoning, then I'll also be happy to boot you right out of the comments as fast as I can. So the title of the article is "The City of Euclid Attempts to Shut Down Migs Pla-Mor Skating Rink Rather Than Face Its Own Failings." So, Euclid city officials have supposedly had enough with unruly teenagers getting into fights, causing property damage, and showing a general lack of respect for the police. A central front in their fight against these troublesome teens is Migs Pla-Mor, a roller skating rink that has operated in the city for generations. On April 7th, the city of Euclid filed nuisance charges in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas against Miguel Sanders, the operator of the Pla-Mor. In an attempt to shut down the rink, this was in an attempt to shut down the rink. This case was important enough that it was presented by Euclid's law director, Kelly Sweeney, and required testimony from Mayor Kirsten Holzheimer Gale, Police Chief Scott Meyer, and Captain Jeff Cutright. The city hoped that the narrow set of facts that they presented to Judge David Mattia would lead him to conclude that Sanders is a careless operator whose business is a hotbed of criminal activity. After a closer look at all the facts surrounding the case, not just those presented by the city or permitted by the judge, or the nature of the venue, which had a 1-hour time limit for each side. After you look at all that, it's difficult to take the city's case seriously. So let's get into the tense beginnings of Miguel Sanders' relationship with the city of Euclid and the police department. On June 12th, 2019, a middle and high school overnight lock-in event was scheduled at the Pla-Mor. In the weeks leading up to this, Sanders reached out to a Euclid police officer to arrange security. Text messages exchanged 2 days prior to the event show that Sanders was told 2 officers would be available to work security. And in the article, I have these text messages from an Officer George, and between him and Miguel, working out the details until we get to the night of the event. At 9 p.m., Sanders started to wonder if the officers were even going to show up. His contact with the department sent him the following text message at close to 11 p.m. Quote, "No one signed up for it," being the event. No cops are going to work it. So no one signed up for it. It won't be your fault for not having security. You got the permit and notified me. That's all that matters. So fortunately, Mr. Sanders went above and beyond the city's requirement that he hired 2 city police officers and brought on 4 additional private security guards for the event. Unfortunately, the Euclid police showed up anyway. So one of the security team's tasks was to ensure that the venue stayed below the legal limit of 440 persons. Now, when the Euclid police arrived, 250 skaters had already been admitted into the building, and another 150 to 200 waited outside peacefully and orderly in order to get in. The officers entered the building and abruptly informed Mr. Sanders and his staff that they could only admit 100 more people. That's about 150 less than they could actually allow legally. Then the Euclid police went outside to the crowd and announced this reduction in capacity to the crowd of teenagers and said that many of them would have to go home. Yeah, so this immediately created a chaotic situation as a couple hundred teens pushed forward, trying to make sure that they would be the ones that got inside. And a few of these many suddenly disappointed and frustrated adolescents started fighting. Is anyone surprised? So, and even the kids who peacefully just resigned themselves to missing out on the event, they had no choice but to linger, since most of them were dropped off by parents who thought they were getting a night off. And man, I feel for these parents as a parent who, enjoys my nights off. So Sanders was attempting to coordinate an orderly pickup process for all these stranded children when the Euclid police started using pepper spray balls and aerosol as a first resort dispersal tactic to deal with a few fights. So the kids outside, they went running in every direction, coughing and gagging, searching for shelter in nearby retail stores. And the use of pepper spray also created chaos inside the rink as it wafted into the building, forcing 250 patrons into just flooding out into the streets, into these nearby commercial properties. This police-induced pandemonium would later be held up as a riot by the police, city officials, and the uncritical media outlets who really, surveying them. I don't know if I'm go through and play all their footage here later and just to dish on, or, rag on it a bit. I don't do it on social media to an extent because I'm not trying to create animus between me and reporters. But here on the live stream, good, 15, 10, 20 minutes in, I'll call them out. And I do call out Hannah Catlett in this just because I have seen her do some real lazy reporting in the past, but it's not just her with this story. They all uncritically take what the police say and go with it. So embedded here, and I'm not going to play this though, is a whole piece from WKYC where they pretty much just air the police's side of it, who say that they weren't to blame. So city officials, they refused to put any of the blame on the police or admonish them for their crowd dispersal tactics. And the next day, Sweeney notified Sanders by email that he had not followed the permit process correctly, and the city would be taking steps to shut his facility down. And Sanders testified about this in last week's hearing during this time. He said, "She told me that it was personal for her and she didn't like the business." This was something she said to his face. So, in the aftermath of this event, the citizens stood up and the city did back down. About 5 days later, there was a city council meeting on June 17th, and the city officials were not prepared for the amount of citizens that rallied in support of the Pla-Mor. Richard Montgomery was the first to speak. He offers a detailed account of the systemic failures that led to the riot, and he chided Mayor Gale directly, stating that her lack of transparency and hands-off approach to managing our police-community relations has landed our city in the news cycle yet again. Richard Montgomery is also someone that we feature in the State of Injustice documentary, and I'll be putting out a lot more of extended interviews with him. He has done a lot of excellent work trying to track and get to the bottom of just how deeply the city has failed to hold its police department accountable. And he actually attempted to run for mayor in 2019, but unfortunately was defeated. So this episode here embedded, though, this video is just the 2 hours of public commentary from the Euclid City Council archives. And I watched all of this as part of research for State of Injustice several months ago. But now that this hearing has when that started, I had to, went back and refamiliarize myself with all of this. And so we'll play again in a bit here, at least one clip from this for sure. But for now, so Montgomery was followed by BLM Cleveland co-founder Kareem Henton, who was unequivocal in placing the blame on the Euclid police. Quote, "We have different sets of laws for adults than children for a reason," unquote, Henton reminded city lawmakers. He concluded his remarks by saying, "When law enforcement is interacting with young people, they should act appropriately. You didn't because you don't value our children." For nearly 2 hours, city officials heard from skating enthusiasts, civic leaders, activists, and average citizens who came out to speak in support of the Pla-Mor and admonish the police department's handling of a crowd of minors. One of the early speakers was Warren Hatchett, former operator of the Rink, who defended the event and how the Pla-Mor staff conducted it. And the final speaker was Dorothy Curtis, a longtime volunteer operations director who was working at the booth when pepper spray was deployed outside. Both Hatchett and Curtis returned to testify in the most recent hearing. And we opened with this, but I am going to play it again for anyone who joined the live stream late. For those of you on the podcast, I'm going to just edit this part out so you won't have to double dip. Also, you won't hear this, so why did I even say this? Anyway, those of you on the live stream, here is Dorothy Curtis at the first city council meeting, admonishing the city council. And it's worth noting she was the last speaker. She rushed to get here after work to make sure she made it. And I am so, so glad she did.
I was there the day of the event. I pull up because I was there to help volunteer. I pulled up and I see the kids outside. The first thing I said to Miguel when I talked to him, I said, "Where are the police?" He was like, "I don't know." So to me, that told me he, in his mind, thought that there were going to be police officers there at 9 o'clock or before then to help with the crowd. Of course, he didn't know it was going to be that many kids out there. Nobody knew that. But even so, you could have still had a patrol car there to deter the kids, or the police officers that were supposed to be there or that he thought was supposed to be there that never showed up. But nonetheless, as the day goes on, he's there at the window servicing these children as they come in orderly. There was no problem with the kids coming in at all. Once they were inside the skating rink skating, there was no problems there either. As a matter of fact, as I was preparing hot dogs for the kids, I thought to myself, wow, these kids are really doing it right. They're skating, they're laughing, they're dancing, having a good time on those skates. The next thing I know, I see kids running to the back. I'm like, what's going on? I come out the booth, I come out and I can't breathe. I'm like, what is happening? Now, I've never been in any area of tear gas or whatever that is that you used that day or the police officers used that day. But it was overwhelming. What did you guys expect for the kids to do? They're going to run. There's going to be chaos. And it was. And I'm thinking to myself, these kids were in here doing what they were supposed to do, enjoying themselves, and this is what they get? Further on, I said, Miguel, what would you like me to do with these hot dogs? He was like, pass them out to these kids. I pass out the hot dogs to the kids. I just so happen to go outside, passing out hot dogs. And what do I see? I am 53 years old, and I have never in my life witnessed something like this. As I'm standing there with hot dogs in my hand, I see a police officer with what he had, or it looked like a rifle, running across the street, aiming at a child. That's what I witnessed. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I'm sure as heck you wouldn't appreciate seeing something like that. I have never, I've seen it on TV. I've seen it where it was fictional, not facts. This was a fact. I witnessed this myself. And I'm still upset to this day. And as I look and see officers, I'm like, I don't want to judge every officer over what that officer did. It's not fair, is it? I don't want you to judge a child or all the children that you're judging over a fight over two kids. Is it fair to judge these young African-American students that were coming out to enjoy themselves that night? Is it fair for each of you or any of us to judge all of our children? They have enough judgment against them. We should come together as a community. The next day, he gets an email from the law director. Who is the law director, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, she didn't come. How about that? He gets an email from her stating to shut it down, to shut down something that's been in that neighborhood for many years. And probably some of you may have gone there and skated. If you're not a skater, you may not understand. We have a loving community, and it's something we love to do. It brings us together. It's like a kid's playground for adults. We love it. It's freedom. It's enjoyable. And you guys should think about what you're doing to these kids if you were to shut it down. And not only the kids, the adults. It's a place where we go. How about that? People who are educated, have jobs, look like me, look like you, they come out there every week. We look forward to that. So it's not just the kids you're affecting, it's adults as well. Yes, I have passion for it. I surely do. And guess what? I don't have any children, but all of them are mine, and they were certainly mine that night as I see them being tortured with this tear gas. You wouldn't like it. I know you wouldn't like it. So why would you accept that? The police officers came in with the wrong attitude.
Ma'am, your time is up.
With the wrong attitude. I hope that you guys consider and think about that and keep that skating rink open, as it is something that is important in the community. Thank you.
So what I would like to state is this, is that it is obvious that this city does not have a great understanding in regards to history and the history of laws. There was at one time during the Jim Crow era in which it was unlawful for more than two Black people to stand with one another or congregate on any city street. So when you understand that, even though we changed those laws, and thank goodness that we did, the attitudes still remain. People tend to get in a panic when they see amounts of Black people congregating. So understand that for a lot of folks, this business owner's business, because it tends to draw in larger crowds of Black people, it's not going to be something that a lot of folks want. And it's obviously something that officers tend to go in and deal with that ancient or historic frame of mind. We got to bring them to heel. Now, what I wanted to go on to say is this, is that this incident, as I've read it, as I've listened to, it has all the hallmarks of a setup for failure. A business owner that was proactive and reached out for police security, but was not given it. My question is, how do you find the business owner liable for events sparked by police who brandished weapons, made pronouncements that caused a frenzy, and they did this without properly going through protocol? They did not properly consult with the business owner or the management on hand to actually know that they were in compliance because they had 250 people on the inside. Had they known that, I don't think they would have made the pronouncement that only 100 more people were going to get in. So my question is first that I would hope that you would ask yourself. But my next question is this, is that if this were the Memorial Day parade and there were some altercations that happened, would police have been brandishing weapons, and would they have been using the chemical weapons that they used that night? I don't think they would. I mean, just really ask yourselves that. And I wish that folks here would actually use a little bit of logic. If law enforcement felt that it was necessary to use chemical weapons on children, because that's chemical weapons. If they're using chemical weapons on children and they found it necessary to do so because the kids would not disperse, think about this logically for a minute. If they were dropped off by parents, where were they supposed to disperse to? Do you want them to run the streets of Euclid? Even in that, law enforcement is at fault. How do you find a business owner liable for that? And also, how do you find children? Because keep in mind, we have different sets of laws set aside for young people. That means they should be treated differently, but we know that their frame of thinking or their way of thinking is different than an adult's. So when law enforcement is interacting with you, yes.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
When law enforcement is interacting with young people, you should act in the proper way. And you didn't do that because you don't value our children.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. I'm bad with remembering to unmute things here. So, but that's okay. I was trying to find my place mostly while I was muted. So in the wake of this popular show of support, the city administrators and police commanders agreed to meet with Sanders and formulate a memorandum of understanding. This was his idea. So it included strict protocols regarding teen attendance and restrictions on the amount of special events that targeted youth. And the agreement also stipulated that the Euclid police would have the first opportunity to work security, and as well as other stipulations like they would have to vet any private security that he had. So that brings us up to the present. And there have been, more instances that have happened. The thing is, if you talk to anyone with a deep history with the Pla-Mor, there are people that have, worked there when they were kids 20 years ago. There are people who have been going to it since they were, and they're like 90 years old. Teens have always gotten into fights there. It's nothing new. So the present problems is where we are reaching into with the current hearing. So 2 years later, the city now is seeking to permanently shut down the Pla-Mor, claiming that Sanders runs this business in a fashion that is recklessly placing the community at risk. To support their case, the city called Chief Scott Meyer to the stand and asked him to summarize the 6 incidents linked to the Rink in 2021. And I will pause and say right here that I could have worked the story a lot longer, but because it's pending judgment, I kind of wanted to get out something. But one thing I did look into, I pulled down all of the police incidences I could get off of their blotter for the last like 4 years, and just started looking at like where else do they declare that a riot is happening? Where else are there lots of instances of fighting or vandalism? One thing that definitely stands out is the high school. No one's talking about shutting down the high school. Funny how that works. When wherever there are teens, there's fighting. Maybe the answer isn't just shut down every place that teens go and hope that teens stop being a thing. Anyway, so Meyer read off summaries of 2 minor assaults and 3 instances of groups of teens fighting in escalating numbers. Myers does not mention any property damage in any of these reports. And I'm pretty sure if that there were property damage, since that is a point they're trying to hammer home, is that all of the commercial properties surrounding the Pla-Mor have to deal with these out of control teens that just, smash, bash, destroy. They don't mention any property damages in these 6 instances of fights that broke out. Maybe they're just bad at building a legal case, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're throwing everything they got at this. The other really notable thing is that in several of these stories of fights or assaults, no one would cooperate with the police. Even Meyer makes point to mention that one woman had like a bloody lip and had obviously just been assaulted, and she refused to tell the police who did it. They don't, it was astonishing to me that they don't see this as a failure. They're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. What they're saying, oh, there's something about the Pla-Mor that makes people, not clam up. Anyway, let me get back to the actual formal article and then this aside, but I assure you there will be more asides coming, or I warn you if you don't like the asides. So Myers doesn't mention, like I said, any property damage and mentions that victims refuse to cooperate. So the title of the final report, and this was my holy shit moment when I was covering this, and up until now, I just was focused on the camera and framing the shots and listening to the audio, make sure I was capturing everything and listening to the content. This was the one moment where I just pulled my head out of the viewfinder and just stared at Meyer with all of the disgust I could muster behind my eyes, and my face was masked. So the title of this last report was simply Rape. On April 3rd, 2 Euclid police officers took a call from the Cleveland Clinic Police at the South Point Hospital from a woman who claimed she was raped after being drugged at the Pla-Mor. So I'm gonna go ahead and play Meyer's testimony here, and I might edit this out of the podcast, but I think it's important to listen to how he tells this story and the concern in his voice he has for this victim.
The incident is titled, get back to the beginning here, sorry. It is titled A Rape. On the 3rd, officers were sent to the Cleveland Clinic, South Point Hospital, to take a report of a rape that had reportedly occurred in the city of Euclid. They were called by Cleveland Clinic security, advising that this female victim was in the emergency department. The officers got there. It was one of our female and one of our male officers. The victim was very upset, didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to be, this is according to the sane nurses, didn't want to be touched, didn't want to be seemed to be very fearful. The female officer spoke with her, and the victim agreed to speak with her and she alone. So the male officer stepped out, and basically she advised that on April 2nd at approximately 11 p.m. she had arrived at the Pla-Mor to meet with a friend. Apparently the friend was working as a DJ that night at the Pla-Mor. And she said she was there. She was approached by another unknown male. This is while she was near the DJ booth. And he had asked for her name and phone number. She gave him her name, but she didn't want to give her phone number. He asked if she wanted a drink. She said yes. He had provided her with, I would believe it was a Gatorade or Gatorade container. He gave that to her and then kind of walked away. She started to drink that. She had her friend who was DJing there taste it, and he thought that it tasted strange after she had consumed some. Started to feel very kind of out of body experience. She went out to her car to leave. When she got into her car, she said an unknown male pushed over. Apparently he was in the passenger seat. She does not know if this was the same male. This is what she tells the officers, if this was the same male who provided her with the Gatorade originally, but feeling woozy. And she remembers parts of the night telling the male to stop while he raped her. And she said she didn't have the physical strength to stop the assault. She just knew it was in a dark, cold place. And apparently then woke up the next day in her vehicle on the side of the road, but now is the only occupant in the vehicle, and then sought medical treatment.
Would you consider this nuisance activity attributed to this business?
Objection.
Overruled.
For this type of behavior or for this type of activity to be occurring at a business, yes, I find it to be a nuisance and to be very problematic.
Your Honor.
I think this last portion that has to be stricken, Your Honor.
Yeah, so what's going on here? Yeah, so the Scott Meyer really shocked everyone with this this report here. Or I'm sure he didn't shock anyone on the city side, but I was absolutely shocked to see that being read into the record, and Miguel was also surprised. So I'll skip past here in my article where I summarize what Meyer's report is. So Miguel didn't agree, obviously, with the first 5 incidents being held against his business and his majority law-abiding patrons, but he wasn't surprised by the attempt to link those. When Chief Meyer read his last report into the record, however, Sanders would later say, "It blew me away. That was the first time I ever heard anything about a rape." So Chief Meyer sounded deeply concerned and troubled as he summarized this rape report, but it is noteworthy that his department has not performed any action that would demonstrate the credibility and seriousness of this event. At the time of this writing, and since it's been published now a couple days later, no Euclid officer has canvassed the Pla-Mor, gone there and investigated where this person came in, and none of them have requested to review security footage of the DJ booth or the concession stand where this reported rapist procured a Gatorade and then gave it to his victim. I'm not a professional investigator, but I'm pretty sure when you know where a rape started, you get there as soon as you can. And if there's footage, you look at it as soon as you can. I can't think of why there would be a delay in doing that. but I've asked Miguel if anyone has approached him about that. He said no, and he learned about this at the trial, which was 5 days after this incident. Anyway, so next up was Captain Jeff Cutright. He was called to testify about his relationship with the Pla-Mor, which he characterized as, quote, managing the crowds, the violence, the property damage, and disturbances associated with the patrons of that business. I tried to get the weariness that he and that he put into his voice and the fatigue he has, like, oh, you have to deal with this all the time, because that was definitely present, and he definitely kept saying a lot of words at the same time, which seemed this is another aside, but that reads like these coach, make sure you say property damage, make sure you say riots. And it's also noteworthy that Cutright's testimony contained some overt inaccuracies, such as when he claimed that his officers have had to deal with, quote, 400 kids fighting all at once. Pause on article. Picture 400 people fighting at once. Got it? That's not what happened at any of these incidences. Were there 400 people present? Yes. Were some of them fighting? Yes. Were most of them running in panic? Yes. All of them fighting? No. It's absolutely inaccurate for him to say that on the record, in my opinion, and I called it out in the article. So he also claimed that he had once observed only 6 adults present for 60 kids at the rink, which would be a violation of the supervisory requirements of the Memorandum of Understanding. Sanders would later directly dispute this in his testimony, as well as Cutright's estimates of how many kids were fighting outside, stating that his video cameras would back up his side of the story. And I have that moment here, as well as the judge taking a moment to ask Sanders if he might have footage of this reported rapist. And it's interesting, the judge was the first person to ask Miguel this again.
Ma'am, I don't know where that number comes from.
It's on the first
But
line of the second paragraph, if you could take a.
Yeah, I see the 60 juveniles. I think that's probably some bad grammar by the officer who wrote that, because there on my video camera, it clearly shows there were like maybe 2 or 3 females who were fighting, who were identified as 11 and 12-year-old little girls.
You have video camera evidence of this fight?
Yes, sir.
And would this fight occur inside or outside of your establishment?
Outside, sir.
You have cameras outside? You have camera on the DJ box?
We do have cameras inside as well, sir.
But you have one at the DJ box that would show the woman who was allegedly raped talking to the man who allegedly drugged her.
I don't know anything about that. Today is the first time I've ever heard of that.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes,
the
sir.
question is, do you have cameras that might show
Yes, sir.
people standing by the DJ booth on the day in question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just have to say, I don't know. I find the tone that judges have intolerable. I realize they deal with people all the time, but it's like, this is what I'm at. Like people are nervous and frustrated. I don't know. That's just my thing. This judge was fine, but there was always so much, he didn't suffer anything in that court. He was just done with anybody's nonsense. So Swerve and Deflect is what I titled the conclusion of the article. So Dorothy Curtis was called to testify. We saw her earlier testify at the city council meeting on June 17th. She was called to testify regarding measures that Sanders has taken to improve security, such as upgrading the lighting and installing the new security system I've already mentioned. She also talked about formalizing a mentorship program for teens at the rink, which she has already been doing in an unofficial capacity for years. Curtis also noted that even though the Euclid police will refuse to work security at the Pla-Mor now, they regularly park their cars in sight of the rink. She testified that the officers would then wait for a fight to break out so that they could write up incidents rather than park out front, have a visible presence, and deter bad behavior. When discussing the events of June 12th, 2019, Curtis said she was appalled at what I saw with my own eyes. After taking a moment to compose herself, she recounted seeing police in tactical gear, chasing children with rifles pointed. It was a much more reserved telling than the testimony she gave in 2019. On cross-examination, Law Director Sweeney pointed out that she asked her, Are you a trained police officer? To which Curtis said no. And this was all an attempt to diminish Curtis's opinions regarding, quote, when tactical measures are appropriate. This line of questioning insinuated that there is an appropriate time to use chemical weapons on unarmed minors. I found that one, I got to hand it to Dorothy for, when she was asked, are you a law enforcement professional? Well, then how dare you have an opinion about when police use pepper spray on children that you know? I have to respect her composure at being asked that and just, no, I'm not a law enforcement professional, but I had to call it out for what it was in this article, which is, as I said, just trying the mere fact that it says, well, you haven't gone through the training to find out when it's okay to use pepper spray on teenagers, so you need to shut up. Anyway, during both their times on the stand, Chief Meyer and Captain Cutright lamented the lack of respect and sometimes outright hostility that teens often exhibited towards their officers at the Pla-Mor. They cited this hostility as one of the reasons many officers refused to work security for the rink. For anyone familiar with the Euclid Police's history of violence against its black residents, the obliviousness being exhibited by Meyer and Cutright was an odd spectacle. Just 2 days after this hearing, a $450,000 settlement was announced between the city of Euclid and Richard Hubbard III. He was brutally beaten by Euclid police officer Michael Amiot during a wrongful traffic stop in 2017. That was, I believe, a viral video. Less than 4 months prior, a $475,000 settlement was reached with Lamar Wright, who was also brutalized during a wrongful arrest in 2016 by officers Kyle Flagg and Vashon Williams. These events bookended the killing of Luke Stewart in March of 2017, a man who was unarmed and sleeping in his car when he was first approached by Euclid police officers Louis Catalani and Matthew Rhodes. All of those stories are documented in the documentary series State of Injustice, which you can watch at stateofinjustice.com. So, and that is how I came to be on, tracking this story. Actually, I learned about the hearing from Miguel because we had planned on the Wednesday of the hearing, we were going to go to the rink and interview him for an upcoming episode about his past problems when we found out that they are not past problems by any stretch. So Director Sweeney and the rest of the city officials are seemingly oblivious to the fact that it was trained police officers who cost the city nearly $1 million in damages. Meanwhile, the nuisance fines levied against the Pla-Mor that they bring up in this court case, this is over the last 2 years, they amount to $12,000, most of which they has been paid because they just take it out of his property taxes. And whatever vandalism or shoplifting has occurred at nearby businesses as a result of the fact that teens, get into any shenanigans nearby, that damage is most likely not approaching 4 or 5 figure totals, much less 7 that the Euclid police have now cost the city, or nearly 7. According to Chief Meyer and Captain Cutright, none of the incidents at the rink have resulted in any severe injuries, and that is with the exception of the alleged drugging and rape incident. However, the incident appears to be yet another example of the Euclid police failing their community and blaming it on the Pla-Mor. I mean, when you consider the complete lack of crime scene canvassing that has been done in that case, it's hard to believe that the Pla-Mor is failing the citizens of Euclid more than the police. In an interview following the hearing, Sanders wanted to emphasize the deep communal roots of his establishment. He said, "There's been numerous engagements here on the skate floor. A couple just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary and a 90th birthday at the skating rink. One of these elderly patrons even came out to the courthouse to support Sanders, but was unable to watch the proceedings due to pandemic restrictions. Unfortunately, the deep affection that many residents of Euclid and surrounding areas have for Migs Pla-Mor was not admissible at the hearing to shut the rink down." Employees of the Pla-Mor did not wish to speak on the record, but they all held a strong affection for the space. None of them felt that the rink was a factor in teens fighting any more than the local movie theater, high school sporting events, or any location where youth congregate and act like youth. Closing the rink won't mitigate the problem. It will only migrate it and exacerbate the already tense relationship between the city and its Black residents. On Saturday night, following the hearing, about 60 skaters were enjoying the regular family skate night. Some kids huddled around at the sides with friends laughing over their phones. Most were enjoying the simple thrill of circling the rink to catchy songs. Everyone left peacefully and happily at the close of business, as they do most nights at the Pla-Mor. And I have to say, I came into this story just, I'm fueled by my rage at the injustice of it. And I'm really glad that last Saturday I went to the rink and just skated for like an hour and a half and then spent some time just talking to employees and a few people that were there skating, telling them about, why I was there and asking them about the rink. And that really helped, solidify for me, taking just taking the story to heart. And what everybody who's defending the Pla-Mor to the city is trying to say is like, come look at it, see it, feel it, experience it. You hold up these instances where teens, act out and do stupid things and act as though that is the only thing that is going on at this place. It's really disingenuous and a disservice to the community. And I really hope if you are in Cleveland, you will find time to go to the Pla-Mor, give them some business, show some support, keep an eye on this story. We are still waiting to hear from Judge Mattia to see how he will rule. And I'm really, really going to be heartbroken if he does rule in favor with the city. And I guess the fight is just going to get that much harder, and I will be rolling up my sleeves to get into it because it's, as I said, this whole thing is ridiculous. I should not have had to write this story. Why is the city wasting so much time? As I said, they brought out damn near the whole administration to come and waste an entire day in court, or at least, half of a day, to call out this skating rink, which is not responsible for these crimes any more than, a football game would be responsible for, two teams fighting. Hell, at least, at the football game, there is incitements of anger and aggression in that baked into the cake of sports. But at the Pla-Mor, everyone's community. Everyone in this skating in this skating world feels it, and they to see it, them have to go through this. I don't know. I could sit here and ramble about how revolted I am for a while, but I hope you will read the article. I hope you will share the article. I hope you will go to the Pla-Mor if you live here in Cleveland, and I hope you will follow stateofinjustice.com. Follow State of Injustice at stateofinjustice.com, because we will be focused on the Pla-Mor in episode 3, getting a bit more into these wider cultural problems with the city officials and the population they're supposed to serve and represent. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to end this here with, I'm going to play us out, I think, with Miguel's full interview from the Pla-Mor. It was shot by our director, Roger Glenn Hill, and we will be including excerpts of this on the next episode of State of Injustice. So as soon as I can find it, there it is. Okay. So thank you so much for listening. And here is Miguel Sanders discussing his recent case and history with the city of Euclid.
The city of Euclid and I seem to have a tenuous relationship at best. I don't quite understand all the reasons why. I think somewhere there's some background information that I don't know about. I've heard rumors, but nonetheless, as I reach out and attempt to work with the city on a regular basis, it's not always, met with the same, they're not always willing to speak to me. So I don't understand that. And, I'm willing to work with them in any way I can. And I would really appreciate the support if they could provide me with, security, somebody to serve as a deterrent from the police force, opposed to standing by and always waiting for something to happen. I think it almost began when I first opened up the business almost 3 years ago. And my goal was to be able to provide good programming for youth and teens to come out and have some fun, and also, have some educational stuff going forth as well. So with that, I began by having a few teen programs, and they became real popular. Once they started getting popular, kids started sharing our programming, our skate session on teen media. So, which brought out an influx of a crowd. And nevertheless, the teens, they began coming out on our Friday night teen skate, as well as we were having special skates like an all night lock in for teens as well. So, with that said, we had a couple large teen events, and one, in fact, of the events was where we were almost at capacity, maybe 100 people shy, maybe almost 200 people shy at capacity. And a police officer goes out and yells to the crowd, "I don't know why you guys are standing in line," because he's only allowed to let 100 more people in. From that point, it started a little pushing and shoving. Crowd got anxious and antsy to get inside of the building. So nonetheless, a fight broke out between a couple teen young ladies. Instead of the police trying to intervene, break up the fight, they end up trying to disperse the crowd with pepper spray and things of that nature, and I guess different tactical gear that they wanted to, try out on some of the youth and see, I guess, what the effect would be. And It really turned ugly. The kids ran all over the place, back and forth. You know, the pepper spray was in the air. Teens were seen gagging all over. And so it really became an ugly sight. And that was kind of the beginning to where we are now. You know, so after that, I met with the city, and you know, we came up with some resolutions, and some of them I thought were good, and I agreed with most of them. Some of them I went along to get along, um, and so now we're here in a place where, you know, I would say 99% of our skate sessions and events and things of that nature are good. But, you know, we do have a few skate sessions that have been bad, and there has been more team fighting. So throughout it all, I've consistently changed the rules. Where we started out 3 years ago with like 4 or 5 different days or weeks that teens could skate on and enjoy themselves. Now we're down to one day where teens are allowed in on Saturday only. And that's during a family skate and only with their parents, who have to sit with them throughout the whole session. So that's sort of where we are today. It was interesting is, you know, I've gotten comments from the kids because I try to build rapport and relationships with those kids. And one young lady just mentioned to me a few weeks ago, and she said, Mig, we would never fight inside of the skating rink. You know, we're going to fight down the street. And so I had to explain to her, first of all, you shouldn't be fighting. And nextly, you know, down the street is not good because, you know, you shouldn't be fighting. And the skating rink is being held accountable for your actions. And so, you know, I think she understood it. But at the same time, I think there's a lack of respect for the police, because I don't think the police meet these kids where they are. You know, they don't feel like, you know, the love. You know, so I think building community with some of these youth would work, will help quite a bit. And so that's something that hasn't been done. So I think, you know, the problem is far bigger than Migs skating rink attracting youth. You know, they have their issues with the fighting, which has been going on since the beginning of time. I fought as a child, and so, you know, it still continues. We just have to find better ways to intervene and engage children in more positive activities. You know, we have so many good times here at the Rink. You know, relationships are built. There's been numerous wedding engagements here on the skate floor. I just had a couple that celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary and 90th birthday here at the skating rink. So there's excitement here at the rink. People enjoy this place. They love this place. And like they say, you know, after a long, hard day at work, they want to come to the skating rink and leave it on the wood because it makes them feel so good. It's a stress-free environment, you know. Skaters, it's a culture, it's recreation, it's socialization. It's a place where you can just let your hair down, have a good time. We're alcohol free. So, I mean, people who skate, I mean, it's a whole nother vibe that, you know, a lot of people don't even know about because they're just not in that culture. You know, if you see people who go to recreation centers and they work out and lift weights and run the treadmill and all that sort of stuff. People are no different on the skate scene. So the last thing that we think about is crime. You know, and I'm the first to say, this is a place where the playing field is level, because we get people from all walks of life. I got doctors, medical doctors here. I have attorneys that come here. I have accountants. I have drug users. I have teachers, social workers. I mean, you name it. They come to the rink and they skate. So, you know, it's a melting pot of cultures. And, you know, I don't think it's the best kept secret any longer, because now that we have social media, as roller skating has at an all-time high. You see it on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, in commercials all the time now. You know, there was a time where it was a trend and a lot of people did it. You know, I don't know if you remember Bob's Big Boy. But Bob Big Boy started with roller skates on, serving people in roller skates. So nonetheless, I mean, things don't change that much. You know, we may do things a little differently, be a little technologically advanced, but you know, people are people, and we're still having fun. And this is not a hub in no way, shape, or form for crime. I think its absence would be a void, because the skating rink has been a staple in this community for so long. I think it adds to the city being a tourist attraction, because I think little do many know, we get visitors from all around the globe on a weekly, monthly basis. Last night, Thursday night, is our adult skate. I get skaters from Youngstown, Akron, Columbus, Buffalo, Ontario. Skaters are out, you know, and they look forward to that. There's many skaters who don't even, they schedule their days off based on our adult skate on Thursday. So everybody is off on Friday, especially if they're coming from far places. So that's an interesting question, because I simply don't know. What I hear is more negativity on what they're not providing for youth around the city. You know, I used to be a homeowner in the city of Euclid. And, you know, I moved to a neighborhood where the school systems were rated higher. But nonetheless, in my choice, I want to be in an area that provides good, wholesome fun for children. You know, you look around, most communities are made up of residential areas. That's because people have families. They need outlets for their kids. City recently tore down the YMCA. They are in the process of demolishing 3 swimming pools. The skating rink is a place that they can learn how to skate. And we provide other programming as well. So, you know, just like learning how to play chess, we've got a program for kids to do that. It's known that good chess players typically are good math students, which makes them better in the area of STEM. And I mean, that's where technology is going. If we can't, you know, find a way to accelerate the minds of these teenagers and youth, then, you know, that's going to be a problem. is so representative and indicative of what this city has become. You know, I hear jokes about people calling this city South Africa, and reason being because the administration is top heavy with all white Americans. This city is close to 70% African American, but yet and still the administration nor the decision makers of the city don't look like their residents. That's the number one problem that I have. And so I saw that as they walked in the courtroom. You had the mayor, you had the police chief, you had the law director, you had the assistant law director, you had a council person, none of which looked like me. And, you know, quite frankly, it's so difficult to find inroads with them because I don't know if they can empathize or feel the same way that we feel about this skating rink. So to say with the court hearing, it was tough. You know, that was already intimidating walking in, you know, and seeing these, you know, the top brass of a city. And here they are to shut my business down, which is vibrant, where people are having a good time. And so the fact that they would then, you know, allege charges which are totally unfounded, for the most part. You know, I admit, and you know, I take responsibility for some of the team fights that have occurred. Of course, I didn't start them. I didn't ask nobody to fight. I didn't condone anybody to fight, but nonetheless, they happen. So I take responsibility in the fact that me as a business owner, I have to do better of trying to alleviate those fights from happening. And so I've almost taken steps into my own hand where I've developed a policy of how we'll deal with unruly teens that act out or are inappropriate. You know, a membership that teens must sign up for and have all their parents' information, and then they must be approved through an interviewing process to become a member of Migs Pla-Mor. So with those things taken into account, the Wednesday courtroom session was very intimidating. And all I could do was, you know, tell my side of the story and be truthful and hope and pray that the judge is fair and understands that they really, in my opinion, have no merit for bringing the claims against me and trying to criminalize this skating rink, because that's totally not the case. There are so many good things happening at this skating rink, and I wish that the judge could even come and visit us and be a part of what we're doing so he could understand that this rink means life to a lot of people. That 91-year-old man I talk about that comes skating every week on Tuesday. You know, he has dementia, and this is one of the things that helps to keep him alive because he looks forward to it. And to take that away, that's life-threatening. And so, you know, I don't know how the judge may rule. I hope that he is fair and his decision is just. So with that, you know, I put it in the hands of the Lord and the judge and allow them to do their work. That's what they're for. Therefore, and I believe in the system. And so I hope for the best. It's the first time that I had ever heard such a story. It sort of blew me away. And, you know, immediately I felt like let's find a way to capture the perpetrator if this in fact really happened. I don't think you can, say that our business played a role in that situation, the accusation and allegation of rape. But nonetheless, if I may have some factual information or, some video footage or somebody, an employee or somebody knows something about it, let's get to the bottom of it and help this victim to be able to, find some type of closure if this is a real, criminal uh, activity or something that occurred. I mean, let's get to the bottom of it and get somebody locked up. And I'm willing to help in any way I can through any video footage I may have, through interviewing myself, employees. I'm here to help the police. They view them with disrespect. It's unfortunate. I think in light of all of what's going on across the country with police brutality, plays a part on it. In light of the fact that some police are simply not honest. They don't value human life. So I think the youth have kind of fed into that, and there's no relationship building going on with the police department that I can tell. Community policing is sort of obsolete, and to say I had a proposal plan for Euclid Police that I wanted to introduce to the police long time ago, because my father is a retired police officer, and we talked about, helping keep my place safe and help the community and help the police build community. We talked about having a satellite police station actually in the Rink where police could come in here 24/7, perhaps write their reports, have some coffee and donuts, and, meet with our crowds, serve as a deterrent. And, it would be a way to assist the city that would cost them either little or no money. So, I think at some point the onus has to be on the police department to assist this community to become better and to reduce the crime, the recidivism of criminals or, people who have been incarcerated returning back to the city of Euclid. So I think, they have to take responsibility in their part. Firstly, I've attempted to contact the city on numerous occasions. Even in our memorandum of understanding, that was my idea. It wasn't the city's idea. I came up with the memorandum of understanding, and it was tweaked between the city and I. But I've increased the lighting outside. I've increased the video coverage, security surveillance inside and outside of the Rink. I attempt to talk to the kids. I attempt to get to know my customers. I have relationships with so many other teens that come in here, and they tell me everything. Who's starting the fights, who I shouldn't let in, who I should let in, and why I shouldn't let these people in. You know, because this problem is not new. They've even shared videos and things like that of these incidents happening at other neighboring rinks around, because the problem is not new. So I've worked. I'm willing to work with the city as best I can. My door has always been open. I even initiated a weekly email with Captain Cutright from the Euclid Police Department, which didn't last very long because of his condescending attitude, and he was always looking for a negative when it wasn't there. And so, you know, but I've had Euclid police here. I'm still willing to have Euclid police here. You know, my doors are open, and, you know, I think they're a valuable part of the city, and I would like to share our resources with them, and help to make this place more secure so that we can reduce crime in the city, which is, from what I hear, at an all-time high right now. So it's not only Migs Pla-Mor, it's happening across in different wards of the city. So I think the fact that they put a lot of the blame on Migs Pla-Mor for bringing criminal activity to the city is just not a good look. They're painting the picture for whatever reason that they want to share with the world. I mean, it's a fact that, you know, we've got Burlington right next door. I've talked to the managers and the regional managers of Burlington. They talk about how high their shrinkage and theft are. Those are serious problems for a business. And, you know, that brings a lot of police calls, and, you know, they lose a lot of money based on that theft. So we have so many issues here in the city that the police need to, you know, just work with business owners and residents more to try to reduce and eliminate some of these problems. I'm a little naive personally. I don't like to look at race. You know, I grew up in Cleveland Heights when it was a mixed area primarily. And, you know, I'm a veteran from the United States Marine Corps, where everybody is green. And so I try not to feed into the black and white issue. But sometimes, you know, it is real. And I get it. But, you know, when there's a group of black people together, it sometimes makes whites uncomfortable. But the thing that whites don't understand is that works in reverse as well. You know, when there's a group of whites together, I feel uncomfortable. You know, when there's a group of blacks, sometimes it makes me feel uncomfortable as well, because it is a large group. And so those are my own prejudices and biases. And it's due more to the fact of the culture that we live in. You know, when you see a crowd that doesn't look like you, doesn't enjoy the same things as you, it's different. And a lot of people feel uncomfortable with that. So, but I think if we are gonna honestly get to the root of the problem and have some open, you know, discussion and try to solve problem, I mean, we have to bring it out on the table. You know, our world is diverse. You know, I've had I was able to live overseas. I lived in Japan, And so I just see a lot of things from a different lens. They're no different than us. They eat, sleep, and do everything that we do. So it's the same here. And I think there has to stop being a separation of the races. And people have to try to empathize with others and kind of understand their plight and where they come from if we want real solutions. We're still awaiting a ruling from the judge. I hope the judge is fair and just in his decision. Today, you know, it's still my aim to reach out to the city of Euclid and find meaningful, good ways that we can work together to stop and reduce crime in the city. Teenage fighting, you know, particularly with the little girls fighting. That's a major problem. And if I were a city official, that would be alarming to me. And so one of the things I would do based on the fact that little girls 10, 11 years old are fighting is try to find some type of programming for girls because obviously it's needed. We're living in unprecedented times. People are living with the pandemic, trying to deal with, you know, coming and going, and the activities are limited. So, you know, you have to reinvent the wheel and sort of do a paradigm shift where we can't just continue to think and do as we've been doing for the last 50, 60, 100 years. We got to keep up with the times and move to be a more diverse culture, which is inclusive of everybody. And, you know, more than anything, I think it would help if the city would really take a look in the mirror and say, hey, we don't look like or represent the diverse community that we have, and intentionally make that happen.